Hi guys, hope everyone's doing great. We're gonna go ahead and get started today with One Crazy Summer. So hopefully you guys have your books and take it out at this point. We're gonna read chapters 1 and 2 today, and then I'm gonna go over questions as well, and then I'll also go over Greek and Latin for today. Okay, so be patient with me because I'm hoping it's recording. Okay. Clashes clay clouds. Good thing the plane had seatbelts and we'd been strapped in tight before takeoff. Without them, that last jolt would have been enough to throw Vonetta into orbit and Fern across the aisle. Still, I anchored myself and my sisters best as I could to brace us for whatever came next. Those clouds weren't through with us yet, and dealt another Clashes clay left and a right jab to the body of our Boeing 727. Vonetta shrieked, then stuck her thumb in her mouth. Fern bit down on Miss Patty's cake's pink plastic arm. I kept my whimper to myself. It was bad enough my insides squeezed in and I stretched out like a monkey grinder accordion. No need to let anyone know that how frightened I was. I took a deep breath so that when my mouth finally opened, I'd sound like myself and not like some scared rabbit. It's just the clouds bumping, I told my sisters, like they bumped over the Detroit and Chicago and Denver. Vonetta pulled her thumb out of her mouth and put her head in her lap. Fern held on to Miss Patty Cake. They listened to me. We pushed our way up in the clouds. The clouds get mad and push back, like you and Fern fighting over red and gold crayons. I didn't know about clouds fighting and pushing for a fact, but I had to tell my sisters something. As long as Vonetta kept her fear to one streak and Fern kept hers to biting Mrs. Patty Cake, I kept on spinning straw, making everything all right. That's mainly what I do. Keep Vonetta and Fern in line. The last thing Pa and Big Mom wanted to hear was how we made a grand Negro spectacle of ourselves 30,000 feet up in the air, all around these white people. You know how Papa is, I told them. No way he'd put us on a plane if it was dangerous. They halfway believed me. Just as I thought that soft plastic arm out of Fern's mouth, those Clashes clay fighting clouds threw our 727 another jab. Big Ma and Pop, that's Pa, Mother still says Clashes clay. Pa says Muhammad Ali, or just Ali. I slide back and forth from Clashes clay to Muhammad Ali. Whatever picture comes to mind. With Clashes clay, you hear the clash of fists, like the plate getting jabbed and punched. With Muhammad Ali, you see a mighty mountain greater than Everest, and can't no one knock down a mountain. All the way to the airport, Pa had tried to act like he was dropping off 3 sacks of wash at the laundromat. I'd seen through Pa. He's no Vonetta, putting on performances. He has only one of two faces. Nothing hidden, nothing exaggerated. Even though it had been his idea that we fly out to Oakland to see Cecile, Pod never once said how exciting our trip would be. He just said that seeing Cecile is something whose time had come, that it had to be done. Just because he decided it was time for us to see her didn't mean he wanted us to go. My sisters and I had stayed up practically all night, California dreaming about what seemed like the other side of the world. We saw ourselves riding wild waves on surfing boards, picking oranges and apples off fruit trees, filling our autograph books with signatures from movie stars we'd see in soda shops. Even better, we saw ourselves going to Disneyland. We had watched airplanes lift up and fly off into the blue sky as we neared the airport. Every time another airliner flew overhead, leaving a trail of white and gray smoke, Big Ma found herself and asked, "Jesus, why?" Big Ma had kept quiet long enough. Once inside the terminal, she let us hang out. She told Pa, I don't mind saying it, but this isn't right. Coming out of Idlewild and putting these girls on a plane so Cecile can see what she left behind. If she wanted to see, let her go in a plane and fly out to New York. Big Ma doesn't care if President Kennedy's face is on $50 or if the airport is now officially named after him. She calls the airport by its old name, Idlewild. Don't get me wrong, Big Ma was as mad and sad as anyone when they killed the president. It's change she has no pity on. However, things are stamped in Big Ma's mind in how they will be. Now and forever, Idlewild will never be JFK. Cassius Clay will never be Muhammad Ali. Cecile will never be anything other than Cecile. I can't say I blame Big Ma for feeling the way she did. I certainly didn't forgive Cecile. When Cecile left, Fern wasn't on the bottle. Vonette couldn't walk, but wanted to be picked up. I was 4, going on 5. Pa was sick, but he wasn't doing well either. That was when Big Ma came up from Alabama to see about us. Even though Big Ma read the scripture daily, she hadn't considered forgiveness where Cecile was concerned. Cecile wasn't what the Bible meant when it spoke about love and forgiveness, only judgment. And believe me, Big Ma had plenty of judgment for Cecile. So even if Cecile showed up on Pa's welcome mat, Big Ma wouldn't swing the front door open. That was why Pa had put us on a plane to Oakland. Either Cecile wouldn't come back to Brooklyn or she wasn't welcome. Honestly, I don't think Pa could ever choose between Big Ma and Cecile, even after Cecile left him and us. Even after Cecile provided Big Ma right, proved Big Ma right. How can you send them to Oakland? Oakland's nothing but a boiling pot of trouble cooking, and them riots. Pa has a respectful way of ignoring Big Ma. I wanted to smile. He's good at it. A shrill voice had announced the departing flights to Oakland. All 3 of us had butterflies, our first airplane ride. Way above Brooklyn, above New York, above the world. Although I could at least keep still, Vonetta and Fern stamped their feet like holy rollers at a revival meeting. Big Ma had grabbed them by the first scruff of their fabric she could get hold of, bent down, and told them to act right. There weren't too many of us in the waiting area, and too many of them were staring. I'd taken a quick count out of habit. Vonetta, Fern, and I were the only Negro children. There were only 2 soldier boys in green uniforms who didn't look any older than Uncle Journal, high school cap and gown one day, army boots, and basic training 4 days later. 2 teenage girls with afro, maybe they were college students, and 1 lady dressed in the Jackie Kennedy carrying a small oval suitcase. Big Ma had also scouted around the waiting room. I know she worried that we'd be mistreated or some way, and sought out a grown brown face to look out for us. Big Ma turned her nose up at the college girl with afros in favor of a Negro lady in a square sunglasses and snappy suit, toting equally snappy oval bag. Big Ma made eye contact with her. When we lined up, she told the Negro Jackie Kennedy, "These my grandbabies. You look out for them, you'll hear?" The snappy Negro lady had been nice enough to smile, but hadn't returned the look that Big Ma expected. And Big Ma had expected the look Negro people silently passed to each other. She'd expected this stranger to say, as if she were a neighbor, "They're as good as my own. I'll make sure they don't misbehave or be embarrassment to the Negro race." A blank movie stare smile had been all she passed to Big Ma. That lady had only been looking out for her plane seat. Papa had already given me a paper with the phone numbers of our house, which I knew by heart, and the phone number to his job. He had already told me that his job number was an emergencies only, and not for how you doing chats. Last night, he had also given me an envelope with $200 in 10s and $20 bills to put in my suitcase. Instead, I folded in the bills and stuffed them in my tennis shoes before we left. Walking on to the mound of money felt weird at first, but at least I knew the money was safe. Papa had kissed Vonetta and Fern and told me to look after my sisters, even though looking after them would have been nothing new. I kissed him and said, "I will, Papa." When the line to the ticket taker had begun to move, Big Ma had gotten teary and mushed us up in her loose-fitting violet and green muumuu dress. "Better come on and get some loving now." She hadn't hadn't had to finish the rest about how this might be the last time in a long while for kissing us and hugging. A flash of memory told me Cecile wasn't one for kissing and hugging. I had a lot of these memories clicking before me, like projector slides in the dark. Lots of pictures, smells, and sounds flashing in and out, mostly about Cecile, all going way, way back. And what I didn't remember clearly, Uncle Darnell always filled in. At least Uncle Darnell remembers Cecile kindly. Okay, so that's the first chapter of this story. And so I want you to reflect. So there's some terms in this story where we're like, oh, why are they using that word? Like the word Negro. So I want to remind you, this book wasn't written, but is based on the 1940s. And during those times, segregation was a real thing that was happening. There were still cities and states that were segregated, and they weren't all like we are now, a lot more put together, and everyone accepts each other. So we're going to see a lot of talk about race and a lot of talk about these girls going into San Francisco, Oakland, without really knowing their mom, and us kind of seeing where they fit in the whole world, especially during this time. So it's kind of something neat to see that these three girls are flying by themselves. And it kind of opens up what we call the inciting incident, right? The very beginning is kind of where we see maybe a problem arising, because some of the problems that we might see might be that they don't know their mom. Their mom abandoned them when the youngest one was months old, and when the oldest one was 4 years old. So we know it's been a while since they last saw their mom. So that might be a problem that we might see. Big Ma doesn't really see Cecile as a great mother, right? So that might be another problem that we see. So all those might add up to be something that we have to keep out and look out for. So at this point, I want you to take out your notebook, and we're gonna go over the writing question, which is, how would you describe Delphine's relationship with her sister? And so this question kind of opens up something different. Delphine is the name of the main character, the one that's narrating the story. How would you describe Delphine's relationship with her sisters? And that question is kind of like a right there kind of question, because she describes it and says that I'm going to be taking care of these girls. It's not anything new, right? So we kind of know that they don't have a mother figure other than Big Ma. And so I want you to tell me, how will you describe the relationship between her and her sisters? And this is, how is it like your relationship with your siblings, or like the relationships of siblings you know? And so I want you to talk, this question is kind of standalone, right? How is the relationship of you and your sisters? Does it resemble at all like Delphine as your sisters? Or maybe it's polar opposite. You guys don't have that same relationship at all. But I want you to talk about it. So in a sentence for the first one, and a couple sentences for the second one, so 2 or 3, tell me how you would describe Delphine's relationship with her sisters. That's one. And how is it like your relationship with your siblings, or like the relationship of siblings you know? Okay. And you can pause the video right now, and so you can write your answers for that. And then I'm going to move on to Greek and Latin. Trying to figure out how this looks. Okay, so let's look at Greek and Latin. And I want to put it up a little bit. Okay, so the first one is bi, and it means two. So I want you to put it on your notebook, and I want you to label the top of it. And unfortunately, Miss Herrera didn't take a notebook for herself, so she can label it. but it's fine. I'll just use white paper. So I want you to label it Greek and Latin. And number 1, I want you to put bi. Number 2, I want you to put do. Number 3, I want you to put ambi, amphi. And I think of the word, when I just think of bi, I think of the word bicycle. And bicycle simply means something with two wheels. Let me see how this works. There. Another word that I think when I think of bi, I think of bilingual. And that means speaking 2 languages. And then I think of the word dual. And dual means being able to do both. Man, guys, I miss you guys because I'm trying to think of another word and I can't think of, and I think of you guys, my vocab experts, and I can't think of another do, but we're gonna leave it there. And ambi, amphi, I think of the word ambivalent. And I know you guys are home, so you guys should not be shy of saying ambivalent to yourself. And ambivalent means like you're not sure of how someone is feeling. So like, for instance, like there's people sometimes that you like come off as they're very friendly and they're very nice, but you're not sure because they might sometimes look at you different, or that those kind of people are ambivalent. You can never really read them. They might be feeling some multiple ways. And so the definitions for bi means 2. Do means 2 as well. And ambi-amphing means both. So once those are written down in your notebook, if you have a highlighter, I encourage you to highlight the root and definition. And so that adds on to our roots that we've already covered. So at this point, you should have about 33. We skipped 11, but now we're on unit 12. Okay, so let's go over them. Bicycle is a vehicle with 2 wheels that a person rides by pushing 1 foot pedals. Bilingual means able to speak and understand 2 languages. Biannual, happening twice a year. Duet, a piece of music that is performed by 2 singers or musicians. Oh, I didn't think about that one. Duplex, a building that is divided into 2 separate homes. Dual, having 2 different parts, uses, etc., having 2 of something. Ambidextrous and dexterous, able to use both hands equally well. Oh yeah, I remember someone in our class is ambidextrous. They can write with the left or they can write with their right. They can choose. Ambivalent, having or showing very different feelings, such as love and hate about someone or something at the same time. Ambiguous, being able to understand in more than one way, having more than one possible meaning. Amphibious, able to function or live both in land and in water. Ooh, cool. Okay, so then let's go to our sentence. And it says, the first one says, my family lives in one half of a blank and my grandmother lives on the other side. One half of the, and I want you to write this in, duplex, right? That would be the one that would make sense. One half of the duplex and my grandmother lives on the other. Okay. He had blank careers in writing and teaching. He had bicycle wouldn't make sense. Bilingual would not make sense. Biannual happening twice a year. No. Duet, a piece of music. Nope, not a music talking. Okay, duplex, not a building. Dual, having two parts, uses, or etc. He had dual careers in writing and teaching. That one would make sense. Dual. So I'm going to write dual. And then I'm going to give you the rest. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Cross out my dual. Cross out my duplex. And I'm going to go down to yes or no questions. Something that is ambiguous has one very clear meaning. So I just learned these words if I'm with you, right? So I know that I'm not just going to circle with questions. So I'm going to go to my vocabulary list and it says ambiguous, able to be understood in more than one way. So something that is ambiguous has one very clear meaning. So if you're able to be understood in more than one way, it does not have a very clear meaning. So I'm going to write circle no. Something that has dual purposes has two uses. I'm going to circle yes because I know dual means two. Okay, I'm going to put this to the side. So now, for today, you should have completed, hopefully, chapter 1. I'm going to write this Monday. Chapter 1 of One Crazy Summer. Two would be bio, do, and ambi, amphi, as well as the sentence A and B, part A and B. And then you should have done your written response. For One Crazy Summer. Hi, Charlie. And then what I want you to do when you're finished with all this, I want you to do the last part, which would be 4, which would be John Brown's anti-slavery raid. So you have 3 things to complete after this video is done. You've already completed chapter 1 because we read it aloud. And then we did bio, do, amphi, ambi in our notebooks. But I want you to complete part A and part B of your Greek and Latin worksheet. And then you're going to do a written response on One Crazy Summer, which is the questions of how would you describe Delphine's relationship with her sisters, and how is it like your relationship with your siblings or sibling, or like the relationships of siblings you know if you don't have any siblings. And then number 4 is John Brown's anti-slavery raid. Okay, so that's for ELA. I'll see you right now for math.